Welcome back to another explainer. In a world literally packed with ninjas who inherited magical eyeballs or massive pools of chakra, how does a guy whose main hobby is just, well, staring at clouds become the most brilliant tactical mind around? Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating paradox of Konoha's laziest, yet arguably most essential shinobi, Shikamaru Nara. It's a question that hooks us right from his earliest Jinin days. Can a village's absolute laziest ninja actually be its greatest hope? I mean, think about it. Shikamaru couldn't even be bothered to lift a pencil during the academy exams because he found the whole thing incredibly tedious. Yet, as the story progressed, he evolved into the absolute backbone of the village's tactical defense. How on earth does someone so aggressively unmotivated become the most reliable person in the room? Well, the answer starts right here. 200. This is the legendary IQ score that completely shattered the illusion of Shikamaru just being an unmotivated slacker. It fundamentally changed how both the audience and the other characters viewed him, and honestly, it set the stage for one of the absolute best character arcs in anime history. To really grasp how his mind works, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll tackle the 200 IQ paradox, then his master of strategy status. Third, we'll look at the reluctant leader, followed by why he's the perfect Hokage candidate, and we'll wrap up with his lasting legacy. All right, jumping right into section 1, the 200 IQ paradox, myth versus reality. What does a 200 IQ actually mean in the highly lethal, high-stakes shinobi world? What's honestly so funny about this is how they even managed to measure it. His teacher, Asuma Sarutobi, realized that Shikamaru was bombing his academy exams not because he was dumb, but because he was profoundly bored. Asuma had to literally trick him into trying. He disguised an intensive intelligence evaluation as a casual series of strategy games and puzzles, like Shogi. Once he was motivated by the game itself, Shikamaru's true genius popped out, landing him an off-the-charts score of over 200. And when we stack him up against other established prodigies in the lore, the contrast is just stark. You've got Kakashi graduating at age 5, Itachi mastering the complex Sharingan by 8, and Orochimaru spending decades pioneering forbidden medical jutsu. Shikamaru doesn't have a magical bloodline trait to boost his stats. His pure, raw intellect rivals characters who have literal magical eyes or decades of forbidden research under their belts. Now, this brings up an intense debate within the fandom. Is his 200 IQ a literal timed metric like our real-world tests, or is it more of a narrative tool? Fans rightly point out that regular IQ tests are strictly timed, while Asuma's game with Shikamaru was super relaxed and untimed. But ultimately, it serves as a brilliant narrative device by the creator to establish his hyperfixation on game theory and spatial reasoning. He might not be a super scientist in a lab, but out on the battlefield, his mind is a literal supercomputer. Moving right along to section 2, a master of strategy. Because, let's face it, all the brainpower in the world means absolutely nothing if you can't use it when an enemy is actively trying to take your head off. Shikamaru treats a physical fight entirely like a giant puzzle. He doesn't rely on flashy powers at all. Instead, he systematically breaks his enemies down. He carefully studies their style, anticipates massive contingency trees, and adapts instantly if something goes sideways. We saw this perfectly during the tuning exams against Tamari, remember that? He famously manipulated the physical position of the sun, using the shifting shadows as the day progressed, to trap her right when she thought she had the match in the bag. Fast forward to Boruto chapter 68, and man, his 5D chess mind has aged like fine wine. Facing a wildly powerful villain named Code, Shikamaru realizes a teleportation mark has been placed on his neck. Does he panic? No way. He intentionally uses himself as bait. He allows Capture to safely analyze the situation, isolates himself to draw the villain out, and then springs a trap with a reprogrammed cyborg. He was quite literally thinking 4 steps ahead of the villain the entire time. The real takeaway here is that Shikamaru's intellect is his ultimate weapon. It's the pure embodiment of brains over brawn. Take his legendary fight against Hidan, an Akatsuki member who literally cannot die. So how do you beat an immortal? You don't try to overpower him. Instead, Shikamaru meticulously led Hidan into a forest laced with explosive traps, blew him to pieces, and buried those pieces deep underground. He geographically isolated an immortal so he could never put himself back together. Raw intellect beat raw, unkillable power. All right, section 3, the reluctant leader, the king philosophy. It's time we pivot from combat tactics to his moral compass, because true evolution is all about finding a reason to care.
This poignant philosophy right here is the absolute turning point of his entire character arc. Before his tragic death, Asuma passed down this lesson about protecting the king, which isn't a literal monarch, but the children, the next generation of the village. This completely shattered Shikamaru's worldview. It stripped away that lazy, apathetic exterior and forced him to step up. He finally realized his genius was a massive responsibility, not just some parlor trick.
And that newfound dedication sparked a meteoric rise through the ranks. Check this out. At just 15 years old, he became an unofficial advisor to the 5th Hokage, Lady Tsunade. Under the 6th Hokage, Kakashi, Shikamaru not only kept his advisory role, but even managed the village's most secure prison. And in adulthood, he serves as the right-hand man and most trusted advisor to the 7th Hokage, Naruto. That is a totally unmatched track record across 3 very different administrations.
Which brings us nicely to Section 4, the perfect Hokage candidate. We're looking at why this guy is basically overqualified to lead the entire village himself.
Look at these traits. He possesses a resume that literally no one else can match. He commands absolute trust as the chief strategist from the 4th Shinobi War. He's secured a massive geopolitical alliance with the Sand Village through his marriage to Temari. And crucially, he has the capacity for extreme ruthlessness. I mean, Shikamaru has literally threatened the lives of rogue Kages in high-stakes meetings to maintain global peace. He seamlessly blends diplomacy, military strategy, and the sheer grit to make incredibly dark choices when necessary.
But here's the real kicker, the profound lesson on the classic leadership paradox. Characters like Danzo spent their whole lives scheming for the power of the Hokage seat, ultimately becoming totally corrupt. Shikamaru, on the other hand, he just wants to help the village wherever he's needed, and he finds the adulation and power of the position exhausting. And it's exactly this complete lack of desire for power that makes him the absolute safest and most reliable person to actually wield it.
Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, a lasting legacy. Why has this character endured so strongly with both the fandom and the author himself?
I love this. Even Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of the franchise, couldn't help but humorously admit his affinity for the character in the official databook. Shikamaru's distinct charm, the grounded, relatable guy who constantly complains about work but always comes through when it matters, was highly intentional right from the drawing board. Kishimoto even fought his editors to keep scenes of Shikamaru smoking his late teacher's cigars in Part 2. He pushed past fears of censorship because he knew it was absolutely vital for honoring Shikamaru's grief and growth.
And that leaves us with a pretty big, provocative thought to ponder as the franchise continues to evolve. Shikamaru has firmly established the standard for what a brilliant strategist looks like. He transformed from the boy who literally just wanted to be a cloud to the man holding the sky up for everyone else. But as a new era dawns, who is waiting in the wings to inherit that mantle? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next one.